table. There you go.
I'm Pamela Overton. I'm an alcoholic. And my sobriety date is July 1st, 2000. And I am a member of the Primary Purpose Group. I come from Wilson. And like Jeannie said, we meet on Monday night and Thursday night. And I'll tell you what, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I walked in these rooms, everybody here made me feel so welcome. I want to thank you for that. It means a lot. You know, I think about if a newcomer walks in these rooms and nobody talks to them, they're not going to want to stay. And what we need to do as home group members, and I can tell this is a very friendly home group, is to make them feel comfortable. And you just have some great food. Thank you very much for all that and all the cooking everybody did. This is some really good homemade food too. I enjoyed that. And I absolutely love Iris. She talked about where we met, and that's another part of Alcoholics Anonymous that I love more than anything is service work. It's not something I wanted to do or thought of. I was a very self-centered person, but when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I had a sponsor who showed me, you know, where the home groups were, how to get involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, and how to do that service work. So she talked me into going into the prisons and treatment centers, and I was very scared because I didn't know what I was going to give. What am I going to do? What can I give? And she says, give back what's been given to you. And I did it for many years, and it's been a blessing. I met a lot of wonderful women, and I've seen Iris at conventions and here and there. And to see you today, how you've grown so much, is just how God has worked in your life as a result of you not drinking. I mean, God can't help us if we're drinking. You know, if we're out there drinking, there's nothing he could do until we put that alcohol down or that drug down. Then he can take over. So, and before I start my story, I want to say I got to meet her sponsor, and the neatest thing was, Virgie, is we talked many times on the phone, and anytime I needed somebody in her area that a woman was getting out and I needed a contact, she said, give him my number, send him my way. And I love that about her. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's the joy of giving back what's been given to us. So anyway, our home group meets Monday and Thursday. On Monday night, we do 2 Monday nights, we do a big book. We go through the big book because we believe in the big book. We have a closed discussion meeting, and we also have a tradition meeting. And the traditions are very important. That's what keeps a group together. So whatever month it is, that's the tradition that we study. And then on Thursday, like you here, we have an open speakers meeting, which we have every Thursday. So if you're ever in Wilson, please come and visit us. I just love Alcoholics Anonymous. Let's see. I'm here to tell you what I was always taught was before I get behind the podium is always to pray. So I had 2 of my very dear friends, one's a sponsor and another home group member, drove with me here so I didn't have to come by myself. And we had a great time on the ride. And they prayed with me in the car. And I need that. Because if I get up behind this podium full of me, you're not going to want to hear anything I have to say. But believe me, and I've done that. I'll be a little bit in my story. But it's we pray, so, you know, I'm a little nervous. But the prayer is about pushing me aside, because it's not about me. If the message is for you, to give you hope, especially if there's any newcomers. There is hope in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a joyous place to be. I have a lot of fun. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. If I was standing up here all grumpy, you wouldn't want what I have and you wouldn't want to be in AA. So we have to be pleasant and cheerful and happy, because I am happy today. Another thing that I was taught was to dress up. I don't want to stand behind the podium in jeans or, you know, ripped clothes and be all sloppy. I'm a good woman today. You know, when I was a bartender and I was out there drinking, I had very short skirts. And you talked about the high heels, Virgie. I had those 4-inch high heels on. And some of you men might like to see that, but that wouldn't be appropriate. That's not the woman I am today. You know, so I've cleaned up, so I've got to clean up behind the podium. So, and what I'm supposed to do is tell you what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like today. And I am a new woman. I was born and raised in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, and I'm not sure if anybody knows where that's at. Very cold in the mountains, and it's the Northeast. And I lived close to Allentown, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, the Poconos. And everywhere, on every corner, everywhere you looked was a bar. That's where it was up north. And a bunch of Catholic churches. That was it. Bars, Catholic churches, and banks. That's where I lived. And very cold. In fact, my grandfather owned a bar. So before I could walk, I was in a bar. So isn't that something? And I mean, my whole family, and I can't call anybody an alcoholic, but all I can tell you is there's only 2 people in my family that don't drink, and that's my mother and my aunt, and everybody else, well, they do what they do. And I was born and raised around that, and that's what I saw. So I saw alcohol, I saw a lot of physical abuse, I saw a lot of violence. The cops were pretty friendly knocking on. They weren't friendly when they were knocking, but it's like the cops were always over knocking at our door because of the parties, the violence, the fights. But I also saw a lot of fun. You know, I saw a lot of entertainment. We would, my family would play cards, sometimes shoot darts. We had a lot of bonfires and outside barrels, and we had a lot of fun. And I grew up with, I'll tell you a little bit about Uncle Joe, and probably everybody has an Uncle Joe. So I grew up, and Uncle Joe was my mother's brother, and he looks just like Kenny Rogers. He always looked like Kenny. And we just called him Uncle Joe, and everybody else called him Kenny. And he had a stiff leg because he had a pin put in his knee, so he couldn't bend his one leg. And he was always over. My Aunt Lori was always over. My cousin Eddie. Our house was filled with family and friends. And I have 3 brothers and a sister, so there are 5 kids, my parents, and all my aunts, uncles. Everybody gathered at the Belovitch house. And Uncle Joe loved to drink. And the stories, I mean, just watching his life was so entertaining. He never knew how to handle a relationship. And I don't know if anybody's like that, where, you know, we're out there drinking and we were with somebody, you break up, you get back. You break up, you get back. Even though it's terrible, you break up again, you get back together. You know, that chaos. And he was dating this one woman, and they would argue and fight and get back together. They'd go out in the bars and they'd drink, and before you know it, the cops were there. One time he had his camper, and they got into some rumble being really drunk, and he threw her out of the camper. He broke her ankle. She took a chicken lamp and crashed it over his head. You know, all this crazy, chaotic stuff. Well, once, and he always ended up at my mom's house, and a lot of times he wouldn't remember what happened. And we would have to tell Uncle Joe what he did. And he had no recollection of what he did. So when I drank and blacked out, I thought, what? I didn't know it was blackout till I came to AA. But I thought, well, that's normal. Uncle Joe never remembered half the stuff he did. So that's pretty normal, I thought. I mean, this is what I was raised around. And I remember one time, it's a lot of mountains and a lot of hills where we live, and we had a bonfire and everything going outside in a barrel. We're all standing around drinking, and all of a sudden we see something rolling down the hill, like a peg, just rolling down the hill. We're like, what's that? What's it? Uncle Joe. So drunk he fell down the hill, and he can't bend his leg. So there he is, rolling down the hill. And we went over and we got him. He was so drunk. And here's what we did. We put him in a chair, and we gave him another beer. Because that's all we knew what to do. Just set him down and give him another beer. He'll be okay. One time we sat him too close to the fire, and he fell in the fire. So the next time, we made sure when he fell or something happened, we gave him another beer, but we kept him away from the fire. So this is what I saw as a child. You know, I saw this. I've seen my parents fight. I've seen my mother end up in the hospital getting a beating from my father. And my father not remembering what he did. You know, and him being in jail, locked up, my mom's in the hospital. So much chaos. But all I knew was I wanted that. I wanted to be part of it. You know, I was so attracted to it. So when I was 14 years old, I had my first drink. And me and my cousin Ronnie, we had somebody get us alcohol. We didn't know what kind or anything. We just wanted a drink. And they bought us a bottle of blackberry brandy. And yeah, I know. I never drank that after that. But all I know was all day at school, I couldn't wait to get home to drink. Now, we hid it in the woods because we didn't want anybody to know. And I was worried. You know, it's funny, when we drink, all we think about is drinking, getting that next drink and where we're going to go and, you know, what we're going to drink. Well, I haven't even drank yet. And I'm at school worried that the hunters are going to find our bottle and drink it on us. I'm all worried at school. So we get out in the woods, we start drinking it, it was warm, and we didn't have any ice or anything, we had just 2 cups, and we started drinking. And I was, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, I was a very chubby child, and my sister, I had an older sister, and she was 5'1", blonde, thin, athletic, and gorgeous. Straight A's, nicest looking boyfriends, she got to do everything before me, and here I am, this tall, chubby, C, D, E student, you know, C's, D's, sometimes an E on my report card. I didn't really do that good in school, and real loud, and I was not graceful at all. She was real athletic and I wasn't, and I always wanted to be her. And I used to cry and get mad at God saying, how come you gave me this body? How come I'm me and I'm not her? And I always struggled with that. I never felt like I fit in my own body. So when I drank, when we went in the woods and we started to drink, what alcohol did for me, it was amazing. I lost 20 pounds. It was like, wow, I am thin. Give me another drink. I am pretty. Yeah, top it off again. I'm smart. You know, that guy at school, I might ask him out. I became confident. I became self-assured. I had self-esteem. I felt like I could do anything. And as my cousin Ronnie's drinking, now he's not muscular at all, but I guess he always wanted to have muscles. And he's sitting there, I'm strong, and he's flexing muscles, and I guess I'm seeing them. I'm not really seeing it, but I'm there, you are! Let's have another drink to your muscles. And that's what we did, and I had the best time. I ended up, I don't remember how I got home, so apparently I blacked out the very first time I drank. But when I woke up, if you know what Velcro is like, it sticks. I don't even know if they had Velcro back then, but I was stuck to the pillow. And I had to peel my face off the pillow. Apparently I slept in my own throw up. So I threw up and I slept in it. It was all stuck in my hair and my face. But I wanted to do it again. I didn't want the blackberry brandy anymore, but I wanted to drink again. Because when I got up that morning, I looked in the mirror and I saw that chubby, not so pretty, not confident girl. But I knew that if I drank that alcohol again, I would be thin, pretty, smart, I'd be all those things I wanted to be. And that's what I did. I chased that for a long time. Like I said, a lot of my family drank. I eventually graduated high school. I didn't drink every day, but I drank when I could, especially weekends. I graduated high school, and then I moved to New Orleans, and this was in 1980. I lived there a year before Katrina. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh my God, I barely remember the year because I drank. You could be 18 and drink, and in Pennsylvania you had to be 21 to drink. So I was allowed to go in clubs, nightclubs. Well, that was it. I fell in love. I love nightclubs. I love that you could dress up, the dancing, the fancy glasses, the ice cubes that would just tingle in the glass. You know, to me, the bar rooms were very sexy, and I loved it. And I loved going where they had the dancing, if they had a DJ or if they had a band, and that's what I did. And I drank, and I blacked out. Sometimes I didn't, you know, and I had a really good time. And I was there almost a year, and then I got a phone call from my father, and I never really got along with my sister because I always wanted to be her, and we were always in competition. But you know, as you get older, you get along with your siblings. So we started getting along. We would write each other letters, and she had planned to come to New Orleans and stay with me. Well, before she had a chance to do that, she was out drinking and driving, and she hit a tree, and she died. So I lost she had just turned 19. I always think she was 18, but it was just 2 days after her birthday. She turned 19 and she died. And I remember coming home for the funeral and everything and being really upset, but being mad, not seeing that alcohol killed her. Our family didn't see it. What we saw was, why didn't we blame the family that she was at this party? Why didn't they take her keys? It's their fault. No, it's alcohol. Why are we drinking and driving? But I never saw that. And then I had a resentment against God because I got mad. Look what you did. You know, you took my sister away from me. And growing up as a child, what I learned, I have a father who, his God is money. What you have, here's what I learned as a child. What you have is who you are. What you drive is important, where you live, what you wear. if you've got a pocket full of money, you're important, all that stuff. And I know today that's not true, but I grew up like that as a child, believing that. And then on the other hand, I had a mother who would sit down at night when my dad was out drinking, and she'd be scared. She didn't know what way he was going to come home. And she'd put the 5 of us on the bed, and she'd pull out the Bible, and she'd read all the stories out of the Bible to us. And she taught me about God and a loving God. So I knew a loving God, but at the same time, I thought you needed a lot of stuff to be accepted in the world. And that's how, pretty screwed up growing up that way, but that's what I believed. So let me just move along here. After the funeral, we came back. I came back to New Orleans, and I moved to Texas for a while. I did the same thing. I drank there and had a really good time. I had fun drinking. I'm not going to stand up here and say I didn't. In the beginning, it was a lot of fun. And all the blackouts and stuff, if nobody told me what I did, you know, that embarrassing stuff, I didn't hear about it, I didn't care. You know, it was when you told me, I was like, oh my God, why are you telling me that? Let me see, what was I drinking then? I'll remember not to do shots again. You know, strike that off the list, but I didn't want to quit drinking. I wanted to continue drinking. I met my first husband at a red light, and I was drunk. I know, isn't it crazy? Now, he is a great guy. He is not an alcoholic. He's the father of my 2 children. But he was drunk that night, too. Him and his buddy, and me and my girlfriend were in the car. And our very first words to each other were a lie. I remember we rolled down the window, and he introduced himself as Jack. And that's not his name. And I said, oh yeah? Well, I'm Jill. You want to go up the hill? And from then on, we did. And his name is John and mine's Pam, so the first things out of our mouth were a lie. And here, he's just like my mom. My mom and my Aunt Lori never drank, but they were, and I didn't know this till I came in Alcoholics Anonymous, they were enablers. They cleaned Uncle Joe up, they cleaned my dad up, they cleaned me up, my brothers up, my cousin Eddie. They constantly cleaned us up. And that's exactly what my husband did to me. And he didn't know. He didn't know I was an alcoholic. I didn't know I was an alcoholic. We dated for 2.5 years, then we got married. We were together for a total of 10, married 7 years. And we had 2 children, and it was funny, I was 23 when I had my 2 boys. And that to me was real young, I didn't know much. And my plans, I'm a planner. You know, I was planning everything. I love to plan stuff out. But my plan was someday I'm going to go to Paris. Maybe in my 30s I'll have a daughter, and I'll have a lot of money, you know, maybe an Italian guy, and, you know, just really have a great life. That was my plan. But I married this guy who's a wonderful man, he really is, but he loved to eat. He's a big guy. And his mother always cooked, so he thought I could cook. You know, my mom cooks all the time, his mom cooks all the time, big Polish families, all this cooking. Well, I never spent time in the kitchen, except to get ice cubes and for my drink, that was it. I don't even like the kitchen. So he would give me this menu. I'm not kidding you, a menu. It doesn't matter, what is this? A menu? This is what I like to eat, this is what I like, especially when he hunts. He had to have spaghetti every first hunting season or something. Oh my God, so he gave me this list of stuff to make. Well, here I'm a young mother. I don't have the instincts I know women do when they have babies, how to become a mother. Well, I didn't have that. Baby started crying here. You know, I got to have a drink. I'm putting a soap on, trying to cook. Everything's burning because I got everything on high. Cook it fast, hurry up. I got to watch the soap opera, have my 7 and 7, you know, change a diaper every once in a while, and I would drink. I was just chaotic. He would come home and he would clean me up. I mean, he did that for years. Every once in a while he'd yell at me, you know, what's wrong with you? One time we went somewhere, we were at a wedding, and apparently I got so drunk, he's taking me home. I guess we got into a fight. I don't remember. I was blacked out. But the car he's driving, probably maybe going about 20 miles an hour, and I jump out of the car. Now, I tell everybody I never would do such a thing. He had to throw me out. He said, well, I didn't throw you out. You got mad, opened the car, and just jumped out of the car. I didn't know I did those things. Fell down steps. You know, we got into fights. I would smash windows. And I'm not violent, but I would smash stuff. One time he came home and I thought I was working really hard. He wanted spaghetti and meatballs. And I'm making all these meatballs, and usually I would bake them, or he wanted them slow cooked. I have no idea. I was already so drunk when I started it. Rolled all these meatballs. I threw them in the pot, trying to put everything on high, cook all this stuff. And I knew he was coming home soon, so I remember taking this big wooden spoon and trying to hurry up the food. And as I'm stirring it and drinking and stirring it and drinking, the meatballs they're no more. They become meat sauce. It's just all crumbled together because I didn't give it enough time to cook. Well, anyway, I didn't know. I was so drunk, and I remember him coming home, and he set me off. You know how you're in a mood? You be in a good mood when you first start drinking. Somebody says something, and you can get in a really bad mood. And I remember he looked at the stove, ooh, what's for dinner? You know, spaghetti and meatballs. And he looked into the pot, and he says, where's the meatballs? You know, this is meat sauce. What is this? Well, I was freaked out. I cooked and slaved all day. I says, you want your meatballs? I opened the back door, took the pot, threw the whole thing. I said, there's your meatballs. I'm getting another 7 and 7. I cooked all day and took care of these kids all day. So, but God love them. Anyway, we were together 10 years, and the weirdest thing was we had deer heads all over the living room. He shot a lot of deers. We had deer heads. We had a pheasant on the wall. We had a lamp with a gun on it. It was the weirdest stuff, all this hunting things. And I remember I was so drunk one day, and I was dusting this deer head. And I looked around, and I thought, what am I, in the forest? I wanted to be in Paris. And that was the beginning of our divorce. And I ended up leaving him. Like I said, he's a great guy. And once we split up, he lived 3 blocks from me. Thank God. Thank God he did, because he's a wonderful father. And I remember the judge telling him he could only have the children every other weekend and every other holiday. And he was really upset because he loved his boys. He's the one who did the homework with them. He's the one who had them in sports. They were in football, baseball, basketball. They did everything because of him. I was too busy drinking. And I remember him being really upset. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. You can have the kids whenever you want. I won't tell the judge. You know, as long as I get the money coming in, you can have the kids, because I've got plans. I'm in my 30s now, and my life is going to begin. So I thought, I'm going to do what I've always wanted to do. I didn't know what that was, but I was thinking of something. But anyway, I got my first job after we had gotten divorced, and I became a bartender. And I thought, wow, I have arrived. Just like Bill talks about in the book, I have arrived. And that is where my drinking progressed and progressed and progressed. I drank and I loved it. I'm the type that plans on a Monday where I'm going Friday, what I'm going to wear when I drink, who's driving, are we going to go see the DJ, are we going to go to the band, you know, what are we going to do? I get all excited. I couldn't wait, you know, just to go out, and I plan all that. And I don't know, there was no more Fridays. I was drinking a lot. My Mondays turned into Fridays. And I had 2 years of that, you know, just drinking and drinking. And I didn't see I was causing any problems. I didn't have any DUIs. I didn't have any repercussions or anything. But what happened was people around me were seeing how I was changing. And my brothers apparently were out in the bars too. And I didn't know this. You know how people talk in the bars. And they started talking about their sister. She's doing this. She's sleeping with this guy. She's behaving this way. You know, I can go on and on. And they tell my brothers this, so my brothers get together with my parents, and they have a big family meeting in our house. Uncle Joe, Aunt Lori, everybody's there. I used to love those meetings when it wasn't about me. I did, because I had a voice. It's almost like we have a business meeting and you have a vote. Well, I grew up in business meetings. And it was like, yeah, ground him, take the car keys off of her. But this time when I got the phone call, I'm thinking, I wonder who's in trouble. Okay, so I show up, it's me. And then all of a sudden they're starting to tell me all this stuff. I don't want to hear it, some ugly things, you know, really terrible things about me. And they're saying it in front of my parents, the things that they're hearing about me in the bars. And some of it I believed and I knew because I could remember, but a lot of it I had no idea because I was in a blackout anyway. So I didn't know if it was real or not, but I knew my brothers wouldn't lie about me. And my mom, being the enabler she is, her biggest concern was the children. She didn't want my ex-husband having full custody of the kids, you know, and having them take the children off of me and my name in the paper and all that. So she did some research and she found out about Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought, okay. The neat thing was, she said, well, they're anonymous. They're not allowed to tell your last name. So your ex-husband will never find out. She thought it was like a little secret club. And they'll teach you how not to drink. And I remember my father walked up to me and he said, Pamela, you go to this AA and you learn how to drink like a lady. I like that idea. I never really got along with Dad, but I'll tell you what, that day he was on my positive list. I thought I could do that. Well, they made Aunt Lori go with me to make sure I went. And I ended up going to 4 meetings. And they had, it's funny when I see just all of this out, it reminds me of my first meeting. They did a lot of, like Easy Does It, Live and Let Live, meetings like that. And the one that I walked into, actually it was my 4th meeting I was there, it was 1 day at a time. And the topic was on staying in the day. And I thought, oh my God, and everybody's sharing about it. I'm like, ew, I never heard of such, that's ridiculous. I plan on Monday what I'm wearing Friday. I can't stay in no day. I go to a fortune teller to find out who I'm dating next. I have my tea leaves read. This is how insane I was. And they're telling me to live in the day. I could not even imagine it. And I remember when I walked in, I met a woman named Rachel from New York, and she had 18 years. And there was Jersey Joe, there was Mike Kay, like 25 years. They all had a lot of sobriety. And I thought, ooh, stay away from them. They're still here in this class 18 years later. Losers, right? Well, now today I know they're the old, oh my God, I want what they have today. But back then I didn't know. I thought, okay, I'm staying away from them. And I remember she came up to me and she said, I had dyed my hair blonde then. And she said, and I had the 4-inch heels on and the short skirt coming into AA, right? And she walked up to me and she said, Blondie, if you don't take the first drink, you won't get drunk. And I went into myself, because I would never say it to her. I thought, you are ridiculous. I never got drunk off the first drink anyway. You need this, there's something wrong with this lady. But it's true. If we don't take that first drink, I can't have a drink. I can no longer drink anymore. I didn't stay because after 4 days I thought, this isn't, you're not teaching me how to drink like a lady, so I'm leaving. My aunt wanted to join. She doesn't drink, but she wanted to join. She loved it. I thought, oh my God. So 2 years after that, I drank and I drank and I drank. And my story gets worse and worse and worse. I couldn't keep a relationship. Longest relationship I had was 3 months. A guy couldn't stand being with me. I didn't have friends because I'd be the type at the bar, you'd tell me something, the minute you'd leave, oh, guess what she did? That's the kind of friend I was. I didn't know. I would tell secrets. I would wake up in my room, I'd hear somebody the next morning, I had no idea who I went home with, and all I know is I'd lay there and I'd pray, say, please, God in heaven, let him be good looking. So that would be my prayer immediately. Oh my God, that's how bad. That's how bad. So, and what happened was, 2 years later, I hit a bottom. And my worst drink wasn't my worst, or my last drink wasn't my worst, but it was, I came to a point where enough was enough. I looked at myself in the mirror. I was 30-some years old. I think I was 36, something like that. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror, and I started to cry, and I didn't know who I was. What happened to the little girl who had all these dreams and all these plans? What happened to the woman who's a mother who hardly sees her children because her ex-husband's basically raising them? What happened to the woman I wanted to become? Where is God? I was too ashamed to pray. I totally stopped praying. God wasn't even in my life anymore. And I had a thought, and I prayed, and I know it was God. I'll go back to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did. And I went back to that same group, and there was Rachel and John Kay and Jersey Joe, the same people 2 years later at that exact same meeting, and other people. I couldn't believe it. I ended up getting a sponsor. This part of my story is, when I came in Alcoholics Anonymous, I knew I couldn't drink anymore. I was done drinking. And I wanted you to teach me how not to drink anymore and how to stay sober. But don't tell me what to do. If that makes any sense. I still want to run my life, but I don't want to drink. So I got a sponsor in name only, but she wanted me to do a lot of stuff I didn't want to do. I looked at those steps and I thought, I am not making amends to my ex-mother-in-law. Cross 9 off, right? I already know God, skip 1, 2, and 3. I'm doing pretty good, right? I'm not writing anything down and telling anybody all those deep, dark secrets. Forget 4 and 5. So basically the only thing I did was 12, because when I left I had run to the bar. I don't drink anymore. I'll have a Coca-Cola. You should come to AA. I don't drink anymore. I was a mess. She told me, don't quit your job because you have a good job. Don't move. This is all for the first year. Don't move because you can afford where you're living. And don't get in a relationship, because I wasn't in one at that moment. And I thought, well, easy for you to say, you're married. I got to go a whole year? I don't know if I can do that. So I never called her. And here's what I did. Just like I would go to the bars. I would go to this bar because the DJ was playing. I'd go to that bar because it was a band I wanted to hear. That's what I did with AA. I went to this meeting because the cute guy was there. If I drove to a meeting, and I used to smoke back then, I'd pull up and say, hey, everybody, talking, almost like a party. What's the meeting on? Oh, traditions. Oh, boring. I'm going down to drums to another meeting. And I wouldn't even go to that meeting because I didn't care about the traditions. And I just jumped back and forth. I didn't have a home group. I would bop all around. And I ended up in the meeting in Cunningham, in drums, Cunningham, and I met my second husband. And he was chairing the meeting. And I thought, he must run this thing. This is like the leader of AA, right? He's got a key to the church. He's the top guy. My dad might be really proud of him. I get in with the right guy, right? Then he told me, he said, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. And I thought, wow, that's exciting. My dad should love that. Well, he sold stuff on eBay, and he had flea markets. That's what he did. He had as much sobriety as I did, which was none. He actually had 4 years, but he had no sponsor. He never worked the steps. He was just chairing a meeting. And I just went down over him. And 4 months later, now how do you do this in 4 months? Ladies, let me tell you, please, and even gentlemen, you know when you first start dating, you're on your best behavior. You're not even who you are. You try to be the best person you can so that person will like you. So how do you marry somebody after 4 months of knowing them? That's insane. That's what I did. I wasn't even a year sober. I called my sponsor, and I hardly ever called her, but I called her this time. And I said, well, I've got some news. I quit my job. I got married, and I'm moving to North Carolina. This is the truth. She said, good luck. That is the truth. Probably said a lot of prayers when she hung up and laughed, just like you guys are, but insane. So we ended up in Goldsboro, North Carolina. We lived there a year. I got a sponsor and name only. I didn't do anything. I went to meet, same thing. And I did absolutely nothing. I didn't really know him. How do you know somebody for 4 months? I didn't even know who I married. We took the kids with us. Then he got a job in Wilson, so we ended up moving to Wilson. We moved there. We bought a house and stayed there. And I worked as a part-time dog groomer. And one day he came home from work and he said to me, I'm not an alcoholic. I said, what? I thought you were an alcoholic. You were an AA. You can't drink. Oh, I could drink. I'm not an alcoholic. I thought, okay. He said, really? I was a drug dealer. I don't do drugs, and I married a dealer. Right? This is true. So I'm like, who is this man? Oh my God, please don't get married after 4 months. Then he started drinking, and of course I'm not going to take his inventory, but oh my God, he needs to be in AA, he should come back. But it got so chaotic, my children actually left. They went back to Pennsylvania. And I came home from work one day after a part-time job, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't make any friends. I'm not involved in AA. I was going to church a little bit, but then my kids left, so I stopped going to church. And here I am. I'm working at a dog grooming place with a lady 60 years old. She owns a kennel, and I groom her dogs. So I only talk to dogs all day. That is my friend. That's it. Unconditional love I'm getting, but that's it. And I came home from work, and this is no lie, in the middle of my living room, most of my furniture is gone, and in the middle of the living room is a pool table. A big, gigantic one that you put quarters in. And he put a big Budweiser light with the fluorescent bulbs in with the big Budweiser horses. Shooting pool, drunk, listening to 80s music. And I came in freaking out. What are you doing? Oh my God, where's my furniture? What did you do? And he said, oh yeah, baby, didn't I tell you? I'm a pool shark. And I'm like, who are you? This is the truth. This is sad. And I ended up in Walmart parking lot. I visited Walmart parking lot a lot. And I ended up going there crying, all upset, you know, not self-pity, self-centeredness, right? Nothing's working out. And I'm angry because when you're not drinking, but you're not doing anything, it's a terrible place to be. So I'm not in church, I'm not in AA, I'm not working anything. And I'm not drinking. I'm almost insane now. So I make a decision. I'm going to drink. I mean, that's what happens. You come to a place, that jumping off point, where we're either going to do this, okay, we're going to take the steps, we're going to change our lives, we're going to allow God to change our lives through the steps and become a new man or a new woman, or we're going to become the old man and old woman and drink again. And that's the choice I made. So I came home and I told him, I said, well, I decided I'm going to drink. Gosh, I even hardly ate all day because I wanted to be able to drink enough, because if you eat too much, you can't drink a lot. I even had to pick out a dress to wear. It was insane. Planning all this, exactly what I wanted to drink. I thought it was going to be perfect. I thought it was going to be like it was a long time ago. And you know what? It wasn't. I drank, and I got so sick, and I passed out, and I threw up for 3 days. That's how sick I was. Every day I was sick. The first day all I did was throw up. The second day, crawled to the toilet, throwing up. You know, and the third day I was so sick. And I remember he looked at me and he went, you can't drink. And I was so mad. And I was jealous. I was angry and I was jealous. I was resentful. I was like, how dare you? And he's right. I can't drink. But I had a thought, and I had a little idea. And I thought, well, I did meet a drug dealer. Well, I never really did drugs, but I did smoke pot a long, long time ago. So I had him get me something. And here's what he did. He drove 500 miles to get it. He drove all the way back to Pennsylvania. You know, that's where we live. And he went and he brought it to me. And it was just like a little bag of weed. And I thought, oh my God, okay, so this was my other idea. This is what I'm going to do. So I thought about it and I planned it out, and he gave it to me and he said, well, let's have some. I said, no, I was so jealous and mad and greedy and everything. I said, you go away, you can drink, you leave me alone. This is all I have, I don't have anything. So I planned it. I put Michael Bolton on because I went to see him in concert. I drew a bubble bath. It just made it really nice, thinking I could go back in time. That didn't work. I tried a half of one, not even, jumped out of the tub naked, running in the living room, he's shooting pool, I'm looking out the windows, cops, cops. He said, what cops? He looks out the window and goes, there's no cops. The neighbors called them, flush the stuff now. So that didn't work. I ended up in Walmart parking lot again. And this time I prayed and I cried and I cried. And I prayed and I asked God, I said, God, help me. I don't know what to do. I'm so unhappy. I'm miserable. I can't drink. I can't do anything. I can't. AA doesn't work. Nothing works. I don't have anybody. And the thought that came to my mind, and I know it wasn't me, was God, because He said Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought, well, that doesn't work. And that's where I ended up. I am so grateful to be in AA. Now, when I first came back, I'm going to tell you the truth, this was really hard for me. I told you I grew up as a child. What you have, to me, is what you are. Okay? How much money you have, what you drive, what you wear, is who I am. This is what I believe. Now, I knew enough after 4 years of that so-called sobriety, which I didn't really have anything, but I knew enough people with 18 years. That was a good thing. They had clout. So I didn't want to give up my 4-year medallion because I wanted to be somebody. Isn't that terrible? That's where I was. And I came in and I should have picked up a weight chip, but I didn't want to. I wanted you to like me. So I said, oh, I'm Pam, I have 4 years. Hi, I have 4 years, I'm Pam. So I thought I'd be popular. I thought I'd have this. But here's the neatest thing about God. God doesn't care. As long as you're willing to work with him, he will work with you. And I got a sponsor. I did everything she told me to do. I worked the steps. For 10 months, I didn't tell anybody that I drank. That's what it took, 10 months. But in those 10 months, I was changing little by little by little. I joined a home group. I became the secretary of the group. I started sponsoring women. I would go out to the prisons. I started speaking, but my talk was a lot different. I started becoming part of. I'm still married to this man, and he's drinking. And he's on this really wide drunken path. And I'm on this narrow path that gets more narrow and more narrow and more narrow. And it came to a point where I had to speak in Raleigh one Thursday night, and a friend of mine who does a lot of service work, she picked me up to take me out to speak, and she had the van filled with a bunch of guys from the halfway house. And I thought, oh my God, what are you doing? I'm living with a man who's very controlling and jealous, and if he finds out I'm in a van with a bunch of men, this is big trouble. So I said to her, I go, look, just tell him it was a bunch of women. She's my friend. I thought she would lie for me. You know, sometimes we could justify lying. She said, I will not. You need to talk to your sponsor. I thought, oh my God. So here I'm angry. On the way, I'm the speaker. I go to the meeting as a speaker with a resentment. Okay? And boy, when you get behind that podium and you are so full of yourself, it was the worst talk I ever gave. It was the worst space I was ever in. And I knew it at that moment. But I didn't know how to fix it. And I went up to my sponsor and I started whining after. She won't tell them if there are women in the van. You know, it's all her fault. If I get a beating because of her, blame her, right? My sponsor looked at me and she said, Pam, if you want God to dwell in you, you have to become honest. And that hit me. And I might have heard that before, and I know somebody came up tonight and read how it works. In that first chapter, that first paragraph, it talks about honesty 3 times in a paragraph. That's how important it is. Well, it took me 3 days to get honest. It takes me a while because I had that fear. But God wouldn't let it go. He wouldn't let it go. Actually, when something's bothering you so much, it's almost like a volcano and you want to erupt. But I kept pushing it back down, pushing it, because I didn't want to. What will they think of me? They'll take my key away. They'll fire me. They won't like me. I lied to people that care about me for 10 months. How could I face this? I'm full of self-centered fear. So I ended up crying. I called my sponsor. I went over her house and I told her the truth. She got out the big book. She was so excited. She said, I'm so excited. God's going to change your life. You're going to grow because of this. And she's right. I grew in leaps and bounds because of that. And she said, but she flips through the book and she gets to a paragraph where it says, we need to clean off our side of the street. Well, I didn't know what that meant because I hardly ever read the big book. And I said, what does that mean? And she said, it means, you know, step 9? And I said, yeah, I'm not there yet. She said, yes, you are. So my first 9th step, I always visualize as one-on-one. No. She took out a sheet of paper and a pen. She said, how many groups did you speak at? I'm like, oh my God. 1, 2, 5. I spoke at 5 different groups. She said, well, you need to make amends to 5 of these groups, plus your home group. I'm like, oh my God. Make an amend in front of a whole bunch of people. I don't know if I could do this. I didn't think I could. And I started crying, getting all nervous. I almost ready to throw up. I don't think I could do this. She looked at me and she says, Pam, you don't have to do this alone. I'll do it with you. I will go with you. And I was like, okay. We don't have to do any of this alone. And I went to my home group, I cried, I picked up a white chip, they loved me, they still love me. I went to 5 groups, and my life changed as a result. And that was hard, it was really hard to do, but it was the best thing I ever did. Eventually I left that man. It was the best thing I ever did too, but it took time to work with my sponsor because I was so afraid of leaving, because remember, I was a part-time dog groomer. I didn't have a full-time job. My fear was, who will pay my car payment? Okay, how am I going to afford an apartment? Who's going to buy my clothes? Who's going to take care of me? I've got all these bills. How am I going to do it? My kids left. He always paid child support. Who's going to pay the child support? I was filled with fear. And I was in a marriage because it was comfortable, even though it was the most uncomfortable thing to be in. But it was comfortable financially. You know, that material thing I'm talking about. Well, I left, and here's what God did. And if anybody comes out of prison or out of a treatment center and you're in a halfway house, it's okay. It's probably the safest place for you to be. And you're not going to be there forever. I ended up leaving him, and people in AA let me move in with them for 5 months until I got a job. I ended up getting an apartment. I couldn't afford an apartment on my own, and I found a roommate, another woman, and we split everything. And for 2 years of that sobriety, I mean, I scrimped and I saved and I paid my car payment. I had to send in my child support. I didn't buy myself any nice clothes. Sometimes I only had $1 in my wallet after I paid my bills, you know, and filled up my gas and bought my cigarettes because I smoked at that time and paid all the bills. And maybe I only had $1. And I thought, and plus I put my AA money away on the side. It was always like tithing. And I thought, how am I going to get through a whole week with $1 in my wallet? This is ridiculous. I'm poor. But you know what I did? In fact, by the time Friday came, I still had that $1. And I had a good week. And that, I mean, honestly and truly, you can do it. And my life changed. And today, and as a result of doing the right thing and taking those actions and growing and getting closer to God, and I sponsor women and doing that service work. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. Today I can stand here and say I own my own home. That's a miracle. I have a new car. That's a miracle. My children love me. I have a job. I never had a job. I never got paid vacation. Because I never stayed at a job long enough for them to pay me. I never stayed at a job for a year. I'm at a job now 8 years. They pay me 3 weeks to be off. Wow, 3 weeks. I'm like, oh my God. Isn't it wonderful? It was because I'm not drinking. You know, I'm taking that right action and doing that right thing. I want to thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, especially to see you pick up your medallion tonight. And it's just a blessing, and I love Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you.